tune in. So
I can always post it too real quick. And be like,
Hello. I am super duper excited today to be talking to one of my friends, my sister in Christ. This is Christina, and she's going to be sharing her story with us. Hi, I'm Ruby. Welcome to the Ruby Room, where I help women navigate the complexities of growth, relationships, and more especially motherhood, especially early motherhood. And Christina are kind of walking in this season right now as young moms in terms of having younger children and stuff like that. And she's someone whom I remember being pregnant, who gave me a lot of really good tips and advice and encouragement and stuff like that, because she started this journey during the pandemic. So pandemic was kind of gone when I got pregnant. So I got really lucky in that department, but I'm super excited to hear Christina's story today. So do you want to just kind of talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am a mom, like Ruby said. I have 2 daughters, 3.5 and a year and a half. I did them quick.
That's awesome.
So Olivia, she's great. She just started preschool this year. So it's been crazy being like the school mom. Yeah. Like it was not something I was prepared for, like in the slightest, like calendars and dealing with schedules. Yeah. I failed epically for a few weeks there in the beginning. That's funny. And then Violet, she's my spunky one. Like she is the one
most joyful kid ever.
She will climb the ladder though and jump off of it because she can fly type kid. Like she is my daredevil, the one that keeps me up on my feet all the time. I'm a baker and a makeup artist. I run multiple of my own businesses, so I can just be at home with my girls. So
that's a blessing.
Yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Nice. All right, so let's get right into it. Just a little background about yourself. Describe the moment. So when did you have your first child? You said she's
February 4th, 2020.
Okay, so February of 2020. So describe the moment you found out you were pregnant.
Oof. That moment was terrifying. So when I found out I was pregnant, I had only been home for a couple of months. Prior to finding out I was pregnant, I was in an extremely toxic and mentally, emotionally abusive relationship, physically too. Horrible things happened. We can talk about that another day. But I had come home after being addicted to hard drugs like cocaine and heroin. I got clean to come home to give my family some last memories. I had every intention of going back to Wisconsin where my ex had moved me and just not being in the world anymore. So when I got back to Elko, it was for Mother's Day. So I could say, goodbye to my mom. And that was the day I was going home, was the day after Mother's Day. I actually had police officers from Wisconsin call and say, you can't come home. There is a death threat on your life and we can't shut down an international airport. So we'll refund you your ticket when we get things kind of like settled out. But until then you have to stay in Elko. So I, thinking that all my plans were ruined, went and I actually relapsed. And that is where I met my oldest daughter's biological father. And had no idea that I had gotten pregnant in a 3-day hardcore drug binge. And then I was just hanging out with a good friend of mine, and I was like, I think I'm pregnant. And he's like, why? And I've been friends with this guy since high school. And he's like, why? And we're smoking weed at the time, right? So like, this wasn't the best case scenario to be like, I think I'm pregnant. And he was just like, well, my ex left a pregnancy test if you want to take it. And I was like, why not? Right? Like, I might as well just put my mind at ease, especially after all of the things that I just did, because I was like feeling really guilty. And I took it. And like, I'm telling you, it didn't wait 2 minutes to turn positive. It was like, bam, bam, positive. And I literally, like, I dropped to my knees. Like, the second he, like, came running because he heard me fall. And he's like, oh, my God, you're pregnant. Oh, my God, you're pregnant. I was like, oh, my God, I'm pregnant. He's like, you need to call your mom. And like my mom didn't like him for the longest time, which is a really funny story, but she actually has like thanked him for being a part of like saving my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I found out like right then and there, and I called my mom, and she hadn't seen me in 3 whole days. She knew I was up to no good around town, and me and the guy I got pregnant by had broken up.
Oh.
And so we weren't together, which was also another reason why I was out doing stupid stuff. Okay. And I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm pregnant. And there's a couple different stories on her response, but she, after the initial shock response of, oh crap, she was just like, honey, come home. And I just like broke down sobbing because I was in no position to like drive or go anywhere still in that moment. And so I was just like, I will when I can. And she goes, okay, just come home. Like, that's all you need to do. We'll figure it out. Come on home. And so in my initial shock, I called a friend and I met her at a bar. And I was like, I need you to bring me like 18 billion pregnancy tests because just I don't know how bad this one was, but like to be sure. And my good friend who was the bartender was like feeding me water and Sprite and like Shirley Temples and stuff like that to try to get me to have to pee.
Right.
And so in the Silver Dollar here in town, I literally took 6 pregnancy tests with my friend, and all of them were positive, even after being diluted over and over and over again. Every single one of them was positive. And I went home to my mom, and all she did was she gave me the biggest hug ever and said, you're not alone, and we're going to get through this, and it's going to be okay. And does the dad know? I was like, nope.
Did you guys not end on good terms?
Oh, no. Okay. No. It was horrible terms. He is not the greatest guy, even to this day, unfortunately. He never mistreated me or anything. Like, he wasn't a bad person. It was just one of those things where he had his addictions. I had my addictions, and he also had his really big luggage full of trauma and baggage alone, you know? And being together was just not good. And we both hurt each other emotionally and stuff like that really badly. And he didn't want to have anything to do with me. And when I told him that I was pregnant, I stopped in the middle of an intersection because I saw him walking across the street, tons of cars behind me. And I got out of my car. I started running towards him, and I'm like, you're ignoring my phone calls. I'm pregnant. And he was like, I'm going to get a restraining order on you if you come near me again. And yeah, so that was how I told him that I was pregnant. And he's like, it's not mine. Like, you need to stay away from me. And I was just like, I wouldn't just tell anybody that, you know, they're the father of a child. Like, I'm pretty positive.
Right.
And he went to the first ultrasound with me, and my mom, which was, it was really kind of funny because they had to do the internal ultrasound, the probe. Yeah. And so like, I'm laying there sprawled out, right? My ex is in the room, and so is my mom. And my mom's like, do you want him to leave? And I was like, both of you guys have been inside of me at this point. So I was like, I don't really know like how to answer that. I think it's fine. Yeah. And my mom's like, Jesus, Christina, like, oh my God.
You're a straight shooter.
I am. I'm a very, and back then I had even less of a filter. You know what I mean? Like it came out of my mouth so fast. And Jeff was just like, he was beet red and was just like, nope, you know? And so, yeah, it was kind of funny, but it like that date on the ultrasound, I could literally pinpoint the day. And
how far along were you when you found out?
I was 5 weeks and 3 days.
Okay.
And well, for the ultrasound, that was when I like got to see it. So I was probably like 4 weeks pregnant when all of the tests were flying positive. Yeah. And on top of all of that, just to say this for some extra background, I was told for 8 years prior that I was never going to be able to have children.
Why?
I had huge ovarian cysts. My uterus was tilted. hormonal problems. They just said that I would possibly be able to get pregnant, but carrying to full term was never going to be possible. And I had had a miscarriage with my ex-husband. And so that was that, and like, I never got pregnant again. I never used birth control. I never did anything like that. And I never once got pregnant because they're like, it's just going to be impossible for you. Like you have like the most natural birth control possible. Everything's blocked. I was like, dang, okay. So like I had come to terms with that. Like I was like, I'm going to be fun auntie. You know what I mean? Like I just never going to be a mom, and I'd always wanted to be. So it took a long time to come to terms with the fact, like, okay, I'm never going to be a mom.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing how old you were when you found out you were pregnant?
Oh, yeah. God,
or maybe the range. You don't have to say.
I was like, how old am I now?
Just like
I'm turning 28. So yeah. I was, God, she's 3, so 20. I was like 24, just turned. I think I was 23 when I found out I was pregnant, 24 when I had her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And this may be a silly question, but did you feel ready, or just because you had your mom's support?
God, no. Even with my mom's support, I was like, Mom, you were still terrified. Do you want this baby? Like, because I don't believe in, getting rid of a baby. Right. I can't do that. I never, especially because I knew how important it was. And I was lacking so much purpose in my life. And like, I had this longing to be loved, and I wasn't following Jesus at the time. I had written Jesus off years prior to that because of the abuse that had happened to me. Yeah. And so I was just like, there is no God after the things that I have been through. And so when I got pregnant and I like saw those 2 lines, I knew right then and there, that's when I got clean. I've never touched any type of drug again. I stopped smoking cigarettes right then and there. Never have had one since. Excuse me. Like just from those 2 lines, but like the journey through my pregnancy was so terrifying and so hard. One, because I had body dysmorphia, extremely bad. I was starved in my previous relationship, addicted to cocaine because he thought I was too fat. And so I ended up being, I think I was like 130 pounds and I'm 5'9". And it was an awful look. It was horrible. I was very unhealthy. So being pregnant and watching my belly grow, and I mean, I was showing at 8 weeks, I hated myself. Like it was very, very hard because people were also throwing food at me as like congratulation presents. Right, people were baking me baked goods and coming over and like asking me to go out to lunch. And, I'm trying to be polite. And so like the doctors are like, you need to gain weight, like this is a medical miracle. Like we've got to try to keep this alive, I was like, oh boy. And then I hemorrhaged when I was at 8 weeks pregnant. I had gone back to Wisconsin to get all of my things. And this was after I had been completely clean. My mom was a very big part of that decision and helping me figure out if I wanted to relinquish all of my stuff and just keep moving forward, or if I wanted to go back for my personal items and get my things. So when she figured out and thought, okay, you're healthy enough, you're good. We're going to pretty much leave. I flew in to Wisconsin with that free ticket I had. And I had my friend Anthony. He picked me up. I had worked with him and he was a really good friend of mine. He picked me up from the airport and he let me stay with him and his girlfriend. And I was staying in this really old man's house in his basement. His son was in prison for drugs. And he, when I was still living in Wisconsin, was like, get away from that butthole over there and just come live with me and I'll take care of you and you're mine now. And he fed me and he never charged me rent. I would pay him rent and he would always leave it on the counter, or he'd come into my job and he would just leave it at the counter in an envelope for me as a tip. So I always got my money back. He was an amazing man. He passed away 3 years ago. So I went back and I got my truck. He kept it in his driveway. He changed the oil. He turned it on. He ran it. He would drive it around every once in a while to make sure things were good.
Oh, that's nice.
And then my parents, Don and Mom, they flew to, gosh, was it Iowa? Somewhere around there. And I met them halfway in my truck. And then we all piled in and drove my truck the rest of the way home because they didn't want me to do it alone.
Yeah. That's sweet.
Yeah. So, but hemorrhaging in Wisconsin was terrifying because my ex and I had, he wanted to see me and I had some words I wanted to say to him sober.
Yeah.
Kind of like to stand my ground. And so, when I hemorrhaged, he was around and it was extremely terrifying. And
that was before your parents got there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he ended up, he was actually the one who dropped me off at the hospital. And he didn't stay or anything. I refused to let him stay. But that was also the first time I ever got to see her on an ultrasound and see her heartbeat too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So,
wow. So, oh my, yeah.
Yeah. Big story.
No, it's a lot. So you've mentioned, so imagine if there's a woman watching this right now or, watching this later, and she's in a similar situation and she's debating, what do I do next? I am in no way capable and ready to be a mom. And I can't be able to provide or be the best person. You said you were lacking purpose at the time and stuff like that. And wants to decide, do I keep the baby or not? What would you say to her?
Oh gosh, this is where I might get emotional.
It's okay.
I would say that God is a very, very big God. That there is purpose growing inside of you. And you're never going to know a love like that. I feel like kids are God's tangible hug.
Evidence, yeah.
It is that, if you want to touch God, go hug your baby.
Oh,
sorry.
I wish my tissues
I failed on that one. I was like, I don't get emotional.
No worries.
Yeah, I would say go hug your babies. Because when I look at Olivia and time has flown by, she's 3, and I'm just like, I look back on my Facebook time hops and I see her and she's this big and she's so fat and
squish.
And I just say, yeah, squish. My daily doses of squish. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say to get into your community and figure out who can help you, and don't be afraid to ask the hard questions and don't have the filter. Tell people that you're struggling. Tell people that you're having a hard time, because if it wasn't for people who gave me so much grace, because I didn't know how to speak to people, and I would just flat out be like, I was addicted to cocaine and I was super abused, and, here's my life story. And we're, my mom jokes around about it, but, Tamberly, we ran into her at the DMV and I just word vomited all over her about my situation. And she looked at me and she goes, God is so good. But yeah, for anybody who's going through it and is struggling with the idea of I'm not going to be able to do this, I don't think God gives children to people who are not capable. I think that you are alive for a reason, talking about and debating this big, big thing for a reason. And, I will also say this too, if it is something that ends up where you do end the pregnancy, you are still so loved by God. Amen. And you're still so accepted and so worthy. And you know what, that's a decision between you and God. But there is purpose growing inside of you right now.
That's powerful. Thank you so much. And so now you've moved back home, you're pregnant, and to God be the glory, after the hemorrhage and all that stuff, you're just kind of, you have this healthy pregnancy. Did you have any pregnancy complications or anything outside of that?
So outside of that hemorrhage, no, they just said, we don't want you, because I was really active in the gym too. And so they were like, we need you to just, nope. To take a step on back. And they're like, you can do very light walking. no running, no weightlifting, no nothing. Like you literally have a 9-month break of kick your feet up and do nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if I get fat? Like I was so concerned.
How'd you manage
I was
that
so concerned.
health-wise,
I didn't.
like food, nutrition.
I didn't. So I'm just now, and I'm very excited to like talk about this. I'm just now getting a healthy relationship with food. And I think it's because sugar is literally, it has the same effects on your brain as cocaine does. There's multiple studies. I've seen studies. I've done my own research, and I switched my addiction to something that is around us all the time.
Right.
It's not looked down on if you're
Right.
eating it.
Right.
It's very convenient, very cheap, and so I actually ended up just switching my addiction, and I gained 70 pounds when I was pregnant with Olivia.
Yeah.
And when I had her, I think I lost about 30, but I gained it all back really quickly because it was just, breastfeeding munchies and
I can't relate. I can't relate to that.
But
sure.
I tried to do like small hikes and small walking, and I knew that but I also found a freedom in eating. So like I realized, like with my ex, I wasn't allowed to eat in front of him because he said it was disgusting to watch me eat. And so when my family would sit down for these big dinners or these, Super Bowl get-togethers or these birthday parties, and how my family parties, there's food everywhere, and people weren't looking at me going, ew, you're eating, like, oh, you're so gross. People were like, oh my God, isn't this so good? I'm like, yes,
let's keep eating.
Let's keep putting this inside of me.
Yeah.
And I loved it, and I found a freedom in it. And I feel like, honestly, like if I hadn't gone through that freedom of being able to just indulge and go through it and eat and be okay with it, I would not have gotten to the point that I am today where I'm like, okay, I've had my fun. I understand food now, and now I want to fuel my body so I can be, there in the long run for my kids.
That's good. So, and just a quick question too is, I know you said from the moment you found out you're pregnant, you didn't use or anything like that. Did you get any kind of additional resources like AA or NA, whatever, different things out there while you were pregnant?
I had gone to a rehab in Wisconsin before I came home.
Okay. And this is while you were pregnant?
No. So this was before. So prior. So I had gone there. So there was a lady I used to text. She was a psychiatrist who donated time to this rehab that I went to.
Okay.
And she and I had developed a relationship so I would text her every once in a while if I was feeling a little iffy. But in all honesty, it was the women at the church that honestly just gathered around me where I didn't feel like I needed to have like a therapist or like a program to work. And in all honesty, I've never been one to follow rules. So programs and I just don't mix.
Yeah.
But, I've got to shout out my friend Nicole, that Nicole has been a huge part of my story. She prayed endlessly for me before she knew me. We were pregnant together through, COVID. And I've been able to be my rawest and most dirty, awful, open self in front of her. And she is like, okay. I'm going to pray for you. I love you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then sometimes she she'll slap you with some Jesus and she's like, get out of that, Like, you're not allowed to just sit here in your like guilt and shame. God's already taken care of that. Get out of that. And I need that. Like, I need the slap in the face every once in a while to like wake up and like keep living in my redemption instead of like my shame. That's awesome. And so she's always been there for me. She's been my literal ride or die. Like, she has seen the ugliest parts of me and definitely does a very good job at loving me through the cross.
That's awesome. I'm actually a future interview. Nicole's
I was just about to say.
Nicole's also gonna be another interview coming up. We have some things planned too. So now that you're pregnant and all that stuff, did you have any pregnancy symptoms? Was it smooth? What were your pregnancy symptoms and how'd you manage them?
Oh God, with Olivia, heartburn. So first
God.
trimester was
You're taking
like,
me back.
I was tired. I slept
Yeah.
all the time, which
Mhm.
is so weird
That was
because
me.
I was always like, go, go, go. And then I was dead to the world all the time.
Yeah.
Like just sleep, cat naps. I would fall asleep anywhere. Like I would sit
You're
down and
speaking
then
my
I'd like
story.
wake up and I'd be like, oh my God, what like, oh my God.
I can't relate.
And then the second trimester, the golden trimester, that was easy for me. That was like when I was like all cute and pregnant, you know, like my back didn't hurt. My boobs didn't hurt yet.
Yeah.
Like I went to the beach, you know, and was like, had this
Big
cute bump.
I
You
know.
I was like,
all the cutest bump pics are
Yes.
second trimester. So true.
I did a lot of like, I went to Reno a lot to see my brother and my sister-in-law and my nieces. And my second trimester was like really good. But I'll tell you what, it was like the day I woke up and checked my little app that was like, welcome to the third trimester. I was like, what is this? What is this hell that has been inside of me? But I'm talking like my family will make fun of me because I still like, you can open up my side table over there and I think I have like 4 bottles of like liquid antacids from pregnancy simply because like I would chug it, eat something and like drink more because I just knew it was
throughout
coming.
the day because mine was bad at night.
Oh, mine was constant. It was
Really?
I literally went to the doctor and I was like, I am throwing up because it hurts so bad. And he was like, we literally can't even like give you anything because you're too far along in your pregnancy. And if we do, and they tried to prescribe me something. And I'm so glad I was just like, I'm just going to stick it out with Tums. I've only got a couple weeks left.
Also, yeah.
But I'm so glad I didn't do it because it was like a month after I gave birth. There was this huge lawsuit and it was like heart defects. It was recalled and like all of this stuff. And I was like, I was almost on that. Like, I can't believe I did. Like, yeah, it was nuts. And this doctor was like talking it up to me, you know, and I was just like,
yeah, actually. My doctor prescribed something and I don't think I took it. I think I just stuck to Tums because a bunch of my friends were saying do Tums as well. Because I had it during the day, but I think it was worse at night. I felt like I was drowning.
Yes.
So I would sleep up, like sitting up sometimes.
I think most of the night or most of the time when I was asleep in the last trimester, I was just sitting upright. Yeah. Because it was the only way that I could keep it like at bay.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. And so another, I'd made a video in the past about how to find an OBGYN, things to look for. Mm-hmm. What factors do you consider when you were looking for your OB?
I was on Medicaid because I didn't have a job. I, you know, coming out of that low life phase, I straight up was just like, I was lost. That is the only way I can say it. But my mom was my hero through all of it because she's like, all right, so we're going to go down here to this office. We're going to get you signed up for Medicaid. And then we're going to do this, you know, and then I was terrified of Elko Hospital because I've had knee surgeries here and none of them went well. So I was just like, I'm going to have this baby anywhere else. So we called around in Twin Falls. St. Luke's and Twin Falls took Nevada Medicaid because they were Elko so close and it was extremely popular to go to Twin Falls for medical care. So their OBGYNs there was I think there was like 7 or 8 on rotation. And they're like, we're going to put you on rotation so you can meet every single one of us. Because you're a higher risk pregnancy, you know, just with all of my cysts and stuff, because they were still growing.
Really?
Yeah. They were still growing. So they were like watching that and they're like, you're going to meet every single one of us and then you can choose or you can just keep staying on rotation. And then whenever you go into labor, you can have whichever one of us you want. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. I just want someone to catch the baby. Right. You know, like I don't care who's doing it. Yeah. I was always very much so like not tied to anything in particular with Olivia. Like I didn't have a birth plan with her. Okay. I didn't have like a set doctor that I was like tied to that I was like, if I don't get this one, everything's going to go just so wrong. I was honestly like, if somebody off the street was like, I can catch it, I'd be like, okay, let's get her done. You know, like that was the phase of life I was in. I didn't know that it was okay to have like opinions about who was, you know,
it's your first time. Yeah.
And so my mom, she always just thought it was like so funny because these doctors would be like, oh, how are you feeling today? And I had to have a lot of the internal ultrasounds because my placenta was pushed forward a little bit. So she was always behind it. Okay. So to get a better view of her and like everything that was going on, they had to do the probe.
Okay. Even after you were really?
Yeah, because my placenta, they would do the regular ultrasound on my belly and my placenta was so pushed up against the top, like in the front, she was behind it.
Oh, hiding.
And so, yeah. So, and they're like, your placenta is literally like just fanned out and then here's your baby behind it. So, I mean, sometimes we got to do just the regular one and everything was fine. But other times she would hide and, you know, do that type of thing. And so I was just like, I don't know what's going on. And they were all really great, but I didn't end up having her there either. I ended up having her here
in town. And so let's go a little bit into the ultrasounds with the being just with your background, your story and everything like that.
Oh, that was traumatic.
What was it like? What was it like seeing your daughter? Because I have a friend who said they wanted to get rid of a pregnancy, but the first time they saw the ultrasound, that changed their mind. And they said, I'm going to keep my baby. And they're thankful they did, you know, several years later. Did that have any impact on you getting to see her?
So when I had the first ultrasound, which was a probe, it was just a black circle, right? Like that very first one. So I was like,
some alien.
Are y'all sure? Like, because I don't look like nothing, right? Like,
I know that, yeah.
So when I had the hemorrhage in Wisconsin and they did the probe again because they're like, we need to take a look at everything because I was bleeding a lot. Yeah. But all they said was like my placenta had detached from the wall, but I stopped bleeding while I was in the hospital. And they were like, well, it looks like it reattached somewhere else. Okay. So you're fine. And I was like, it can just do that? What is it? Like a jellyfish? I didn't know it could do that. Like, oh my gosh. Like what's what? And so they're like, yeah, it happens. It's kind of rare, but like, you're fine. And I'm like, okay. But they took me, I will forever remember this. Their ultrasound machine was broken upstairs in this Wisconsin hospital in Green Bay. And they're like, we have one downstairs. And I'm like, okay. Like, what does downstairs mean? This downstairs straight up looked like a morgue. All right. Like it was like gray. Like I remember the colors, like it was so sterile. Okay. You know, and I'm just like looking around like, don't forget me down here. Okay. Like,
what a special moment.
And so she goes, I know. And the nurse was super awesome because she's like, I know this is super weird. We're not going to do anything weird to you. And I had expressed to her.
And you were by yourself. You didn't have anyone around with you.
Right. And I was like, I expressed to her, like, I've been, sexually assaulted. And I was like, I need you to tell me before anything happens. Like, walk me through it, warn me, anything. And she goes, okay. And she was wonderful. She walked me through step by step everything she was about to do. She's like, can you take a deep breath? Like, do you need me to wait? Are you okay if I proceed? Like, her mannerisms and just the way she spoke to me was just very respectful. And she ended up actually sharing with me that she had been through something very similar. And so she knew what I was going through. And so it was really, really awesome. And she actually shared Jesus with me. And I told her, I was like, oh, my whole family's, those crazy Christians.
I know some of them.
Yeah. I was like, I came from that herd. I'm the black sheep, And she was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And it was kind of like she just knew like things were going to be okay for me because she was like, all right, well, you're going to be okay. And then like when I saw Olivia on the screen, like we didn't know if it was a boy or girl yet. Right. So she was like, so this is your baby. And it was like 8 weeks. So much can change in 3 weeks, And so there's a baby on the screen. Wow. And I was like, I remember just like holding my breath and she goes, honey, breathe. Cause she's like, you need to take a breath, like breathe. And I was like, And I remember going like that, and I remember like they only have nubs like at that time, you know, like little like
they look like
little tadpoles.
I remember that.
But like she wiggled when I took a deep breath in, and I saw this like little wiggle, and I lost it. Like I was just like, she's okay, like, or I was like, it's okay. And she was like, yeah, your baby, that's your baby right there. And she goes, let me take some pictures. And she gave me like way more pictures than probably what was allowed. But I'm talking like I came home and I could like you know, like
it's a scroll.
So it was so cool though. And she was so sweet, and she literally let me hear the heartbeat for probably like a solid 5 minutes. Wow. And just like literally just sat there with me and held my hand. She's like, we've got nothing going on tonight. Like, it's okay. Wow. I'll just sit here with you for a minute.
That's special.
Yeah.
That's
it was
such a blessing.
And I don't even remember her name, but she's like such a big part of my story, you know, like she definitely made me feel so much better. Like, she was the one who walked me out of the hospital, like everything. She's like, you're mine now. Like, I don't even care.
That's so nice. That is so special. And so, you know, the pregnancies going on and all that stuff, you've been blessed by community supporting you and all that stuff. So, because I know your story a little bit, I know a special man came into your life.
Oh boy.
While you were pregnant. How far along? Just talk to us about that.
So, crazy as it seems, y'all single ladies who are pregnant can have a dating life while you're pregnant. Mm-hmm. There are good men out there. Mm-hmm. When I was 4 months pregnant, I actually met my ex, Corey. And me and Jeremy were just talking about this the other night. He was my stepping stone into, I feel like he was like training me on how to be a good wife. Showing me that it's okay to let a man take care of you a little bit and date you. He was very respectful. He had an ex-wife and 4 kids, you know, living like across the states. But he was just so genuine. He would come and hang out with me and my parents at my house. And we were just, honestly, I say he was my ex, but I feel like honestly we were more than just like really close friends. Yeah. And, but he showed me it was okay to open up to a man again. And so when, ironically, he went back to his wife and kids while we were together. Oh. Good man, right? Yeah. Anyway, he was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
So I was like with him, and he was a Christian. And so he was like, oh, your brother's a pastor. Let's go to church. And I was like, oh, crap, you know, like, you want to go to church? So we started going to church. Yeah. And then Tuesday night, like Corey left like for a while for work. And so I remember there's this other lady in the church who was like head over heels in love with Jeremiah, to the point where she was like stalking him. And was like finding out what community group he was attending and stuff, so she could go. And that happened. And she was like a friend of mine at the time. And so I was like, yeah, dude, yeah, he's super cute. Like, go for him, you know, like, hell yeah. And then they started dating for a minute. And I was like, cool. I still never seen this person, never seen Jeremiah in person, never met him. Every single time, like, community group was starting, I was heading out the door because I didn't want to have any part of it. None of that Jesus stuff, right? And I will forever remember the first time I ever met Jeremiah in person. So it was the old building at church, and you walked into the foyer, and that blue room classroom was right to the left, right by the doors. Right, I was teaching, 6 months pregnant. Wow. Hair pulled back in a super tight bun. It was not cute. I did not look cute that day.
You're not feeling the
I
man
did not
bun.
look cute. It was awful for me. I literally looked horrible. My mom is standing there doing her thing with all the lanyards, greeting, you know, being her bubbly, cute self.
Yeah.
And there's that window in that classroom. She saw him walking across the street. And I kid you not, I joke around with her about this all the time because she does not believe me. She grabs a child and like physically moves this kid out of the way and like goes, it's him. It's him. It's him. That's him. And I'm like, who's him? What's a him?
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And she's like, it's him. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And so here he comes in all of his sexiness. Okay. And he walks through the door and she immediately like grabs his arm, was like, Jeremiah, I need you to meet somebody. And I was like, what? And
did you know? Oh,
no,
well, you knew
like
of him
I knew
just because
of
of your
him,
friend.
but I was like,
never
what?
met him before.
No,
Oh
and so he was like, okay, Holly, and gives her a bit, like, you know when you can tell someone really cares about somebody, how they hug them,
right,
and you can see
very
it.
affectionate, yeah.
So he like hugs my mom, and I'm like, I'm jealous.
I know.
You know? Like, hug me like that, sir.
Those are reserved for kids.
So she brings him over to me because I can't leave that door, right? Because I'm teaching. And she goes, Jeremy, this is my daughter. This is the one we've been praying to come home.
Oh.
And Jeremiah goes, oh, well, hi. And I was like, hi. And we're awkwardly holding hands in the shaking position. And we said hi like 7 times to each other. Hi. Hi.
That's so
hi.
adorable.
And he's like, hey. And I'm like, hi. And I'm an awkward individual in general in situations where there's cute boys involved. And I was like, and my mom's like, she taps her hands like in the shaking position. She's like, okay. And I was like, I gotta teach. And so Tuesday night rolls around. That's when my mom has her community group. And I'm all dolled up because I'm going to go down to a bar to play pool with my friends, 6 months pregnant. I was a winner. and so I was like getting all ready, and in walks Jeremiah. And I was like, I look at my mom, was like, hey, my friends are going to be kind of late. Is it cool if I chill at your group? And my mom was like, yeah.
She did the math.
Yeah. She was like, yeah. So I stayed for the group, and this man is over here like still praying for my like future wife. Like I really want to have kids. And he's like, just pray that I find somebody. I really want to just share my time with them. And I'm sitting there like, like he ain't gonna want me. Like I've got someone else's baby brewing. Like I live with my mom, I'm in my 20s. Like I should have had my stuff together. And yeah, so I randomly, the community group ends and he's walking out the door, and I kind of just was like, screw it. Do you want to go play pool at Goldie's with me and my friends? And he was like, sure, let's run to my house really quick and grab some cash. I'll meet you down there. And we met down there, and it turns out like me and Corey were on the rocks, him and his chick, they're on the rocks, and we're kind of like, and I never gave him my phone number, but he goes onto, remember Realm? That
oh yeah. The app.
So he went onto this church app that we had, and he found my phone number, and he texted me that I woke up to a text message at like 6 a.m. I had so much fun with you. Our conversation was so awesome. Would you like to come over and watch a movie at my place tonight? And I was like, sure. And I'm like, 6 months, and I'm going in my head like, I am 6 months pregnant.
That is like, dude,
baby.
Do you not see?
Did you miss it? Did you miss the baby bump? Like I know I was wearing a black shirt, but like it ain't that thinning,
right?
So I went over to his house, and Corey calls me, and I've been trying to break up with this guy for like 2 weeks, but he was never picking up his phone call. And he's like, hey, I'm getting remarried to my wife. And I'm like, got it. I'm trying to break up with you too. And he was like, cool. But I was like still really heartbroken because I was emotional and hormonal and pregnant. And this all happened on Jeremiah's couch. And Jeremy just looked at me and was like, so you guys are done? And I was like, I guess so. And he's like, cool. Well, God says I need to pursue your heart. So that's what I'm going to do now. And I was like, what? And he said it again. And I was like, I think I'm going to go back to my mom's house. That's really weird.
Oh,
that's kind of creepy.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, and then the next day he just like showed up again because he was not working because it was, end of fire season.
Right.
So this was September, October-ish. And so he just started like coming around, hanging out with me. Yeah, he would take me on, like, for Christmas, he took me on these, like, little, let's go drive around, get hot chocolate, and look at, like, lights. He took me on all sorts of really fun dates. I tried to break up with him in December. So we had only been together for, like, 2 months, and I was like, this guy, we don't fight. It's too perfect. I was like, he is, like, fully accepting of everything. And I was like, my situation is a hard one to accept. And this guy's just like, give it to me, baby. And I'm like, you're messed up. Like, that's gotta be a red flag, right? And so I go to Reno, I break up with him. I'm like, we can only be friends. And he's like, cool. I have tickets to go on vacation with your family to Luminaria in Salt Lake, so I'm still going to go. And I'm like, that's super weird, but okay. So I go to Reno. I ditch out on a Luminaria, and I go to Reno to see my other brother. And I'm telling Jamie all of these really good things as if they're red flags. I'm like, he just accepts me for everything.
He's like so loving. It's annoying.
Like, he wants to touch me all the time. And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Ugh.
Yeah. And she's like, what a douchebag.
I know.
Right?
Terrible guy.
And so I get back, and he's texting me the entire time, right? Like, how are you feeling today, friend? You know, like, you'd throw it in there.
Throw it in there. Just
and so, like, I get back, and he gets back, and he's like, can I just come over and see you? Like, I just want to see you, make sure you're okay. Like, all of the things. And I was like, yeah, I guess. And I'll forever remember, I'm sitting on the couch, pregnant as hell, not feeling myself, no makeup on. First time he's ever seen me, no makeup on. And he comes inside, holds out his hands, he grabs mine, he pulls me up, right? The whole, you know, he pulls me up, and he just wraps me in this hug, and he kisses my neck, and he's like, God, I missed you. And we've been together ever since that day. So, yeah, he had never been to an ultrasound. He had never felt a baby move, none of that. So Olivia was his first on everything. So, like,
did you guys actually have a talk about the pregnancy and navigating through that?
I was very much so, like, during that time, I was so pinpoint focused. Like, my new purpose in life was to get Olivia's biological dad involved. And I told him that, like, he knew that I was like, he's going to get involved. He needs to claim her. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. Like, all of this stuff. I mean, we were praying about it in community group. And it bothered him, I think, because he was like, what's the point? I'm here. I'll take it. He's like, it's mine. Like, he got very territorial very quickly of me and of the baby. And so he ended up coming to when I was trying to do the whole we're just friends thing. And I was definitely, you're an arm's length away from me. He came with my mom and I to go find out the sex of the baby. And so, I didn't want to know or anything like that yet, but he came to the ultrasound and got to see her 3D, got to, like, hear the heartbeat. And he was just, like, mesmerized by it. Like, he was there for it. He was holding my hand. He was being so sweet. And my mom loves to tell the story that when we were there, clearly you've seen Jeremiah, great looking man, coming off of fire season. He's extremely muscular. He's a big man. And she goes, I absolutely loved it. She goes, because in a room full of beautiful nurses, every single one of them elbowing each other, pointing at Jeremiah, you know, doing the whole, like, look at this guy, the entire time his eyes never left you. And I was just like, seriously? And she goes, he is the one for you. His eyes have never once left you.
Wow.
And I'm like, dang.
Well, he was doing kingdom work, especially when God confirmed that you're the one. So I'm just he's a man of faith. Like, he stays focused.
And that's what's crazy is, like, so many people, like my brother Nate, you know, being the pastor and everything, he was like, he's giving faithfully as a single man. He has been for years. He's serving faithfully when he is able to and capable. He's serving on his own. No one's trying to, like, pull him into a service department. He's constantly already doing it. And I'm sitting there going, like, do I really want a Christian man? You know, because I'm still battling a little bit with, like, my faith. And then it was honestly the way that Jeremiah loved me that just, like, continued to bring me closer to Jesus. like, in all honesty, because he loved me with so much grace. And like on my super hard days, it was like he grabbed my hand and was like, all right, have your hard day. I'm here for it.
I just love your story. It's full of a lot of pain and struggles, but also there's so many examples of grace and redemption, like so evident, like through your mom. It reminded me of like a prodigal son, like, you know, when your mom's like, you're home. We welcome home and all is going to be fine, you know, and just Jeremiah just loving you through all that and stuff when you're like, no, I don't deserve this. You're trying to self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And here you are. And so what advice would you give a woman who is kind of like that too? Because I can relate to that. I've been through a lot of terrible relationships and stuff like that. Like when my husband and I started dating, I was always waiting. I'm like, what is it going to be now? What is it? What? It's like the stupidest things too. I saw myself picking fights about. Yeah. And then later I'm just like, oh, this is stupid. But then my pride is like, don't apologize.
Yeah.
Be strong.
Hold your ground.
Be strong. But it's like you're waiting because you've seen so many poor examples. And so when you see a good example, you're like, what's the ulterior motive there?
Yeah.
When is it gonna? So what would you advise, you know, woman who's had like terrible, like dating experiences or going through a really hard time right now, having to make a really hard decision. And then love is coming her way, but she's having a hard time accepting it.
I think the first and the foremost thing that comes to my mind being a Christian is, you have to preach to yourself every day the love of God. And this is the number one thing that I have learned being married to Mr. Perfect, right? And that we always joke around about that because I'm like, if y'all think he's so perfect, take him, you know? But is that men are going to fail us. We're human. They're human. No matter how good their love is, no matter how good Jeremiah has been, there's been awful times where he's failed me and he's disappointed me and I've disappointed him and I have failed him. And it's don't live on the expectation that this is a perfect love, that love is the only thing that is going to make, you know, a relationship work, because it's not. God's love
conquers all.
No, it does not.
Cup stuff.
Yeah, I promise you it does not.
No.
Yeah, no. I love my husband, but no. No, but the biggest thing, it like, just in all honesty, is like God's love conquers all. And God's love is the most important. And it doesn't matter how your husband views you or, you know, those types of things. It's what God says about you is what God says about me is my identity. And if I'm talking to somebody else, like what God says about you should be your identity. And, you know, God says that you are worthy and you are beautiful and you are loved and forgiven and redeemed and all of those things. And you get to live into that. And living into that is going to make you fully prepared to be a wife of a broken person, because you can love through that. Yeah. And hopefully you're looking for the man who is seeing that for himself too, because if he can live into his redemption, into his worth in Christ, into what Jesus says about him, he's going to love you through that same way. And when he does fail you, because it will happen, you'll be able to extend the grace that's been given to you.
Yeah, that's good. That's very encouraging. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I know I could relate to that. Like, and even like several friends of mine and stuff, those are one of the conversations, the kitchen table conversations you have with your girlfriends and stuff like that. Because you're just like you said, with your sister-in-law, you're over here saying all these terrible things.
Terrible.
And it's like, he's so loving. He like kisses me and stuff like that. Like, how dare he?
How dare he?
You know?
Yeah.
So that's really, really encouraging. And so like now going into just some tips on with respect to pregnancy. I know you say you didn't have a birth plan and stuff like that. And you also kind of rotated the doctors, but like, what are 3 things you'd recommend a woman should like have in her hospital bag? Did you have an emergency birth? Like, were you even prepared? Let me ask that first.
Via came 3 weeks early.
Oh.
So me and Jeremiah went to Twin Falls. I got so comfortable with Jeremiah in my life. he ended up taking me to my doctor's appointments alone. Like, my mom wasn't my support person anymore. Jeremiah was stepping into that role.
And just for context, Twin is 2.5 hours away from here. Yes, it's a 2.5 hour drive.
3 hours in the winter. Three and a half to 4 hours in the winter.
Oh,
that road
God,
is
93 is the worst.
Yeah. And thinking February, that's when we're getting the worst of the snow. We went to one of my appointments. I had been switched to where we were going once a week, right? Because last month they start doing once a week. Well, they measure her and they're like, yeah, she's measuring at probably about 7 to 8 pounds, like all of this stuff. She looks right on track. She might come maybe a couple days early, but you've got a ways to go. I'm like, okay, and so we head home. That entire night, like we went to Costco, because that's why we all Elko-wins go to Twin, is for Costco. Right. But we went to Costco and my lower back was killing me. And I was just like, F this. And I've got to sit in a car for 2.5 hours to get home. Yeah. So we get home and I remember saying goodbye to Jeremiah, because I'm living with my mom. He lives in his own apartment. Right. He's 12 years older than me. He has his shit together. Okay. Yeah. He's at home. Yeah. I went to sushi with my brother and his wife and my mom and my stepdad. And I remember going to the bathroom at Blue Moon and I was like, ow, do I have to poop? That feeling where you're like, where you're just sitting there and you're just like, man, it's just probably Braxton Hicks, because I've had such a crazy ass day. And then I was feeling like I was getting a cold. Oh. I was really stuffed up, and AKA beginning of COVID, I'm almost 100% certain I had COVID. So, because I lost all sense of taste, all sense of smell, I was so dead to the world sick. And then that night, I watched the Taylor Swift documentary, trashed it on Facebook, and then was like, I'm going to call it a day and go to bed.
Work's done for today.
It was horrible. I remember doing it though. Funny. I was like, I watched it and I was like, that was an hour and a half of time I'm never getting back. I hate that I watched this movie. It was like 9 o'clock at night. I was so congested. I was like, Mom, I don't even care if it's bad for the baby at this point. I need something to knock my ass out. Like, I want to sleep. So she gives me these Claritin, like, nighttime medicines. Totally helped with the congestion, but labor stops for nobody, not even Claritin DM. So I wake up and my back is hurting. And I remember just like being in there, the contractions when you're in back labor, they don't happen. Your back labor is constantly just tight and you're in constant pain. It's not a easy flow, like where you get a break in between. Yeah. So back labor was like 10 times worse. And I didn't even know I was in labor. Right. So, cause it started so just achy. And so, but I remember I would tuck my foot up underneath me and I was sitting on the edge of my bed rocking, cause that was the only thing I could do to like work through the pain. Yeah. And then finally I was like, I love hot water. Why am I not in the shower right now? It's 11 o'clock at night. I can take a hot shower. Right. So I get in the shower and I shave my legs and I'm doing my hair. I'm deep conditioning my hair, letting hot water just boil my back.
The whole spa.
It was like a whole spa thing. 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, screw it, I'm awake. And I'm fighting the grogginess from this Claritin though. Like, I about killed myself. Like, I was just so tired. And then finally, like, I was in heaven in the shower with the hot water. It helped tremendously. So I was like, okay, I'm good to go. Second I got out of that hot water, it hit me like a ton of bricks. So I go back into bed. My hair is dripping wet. And I remember it because it was pissing me off so bad. I wanted to braid my hair so bad, but I couldn't get my hand off of my back. So I couldn't find my voice either because it started to clench down so bad and hurt so bad. So I threw my water bottle at my door and my mom heard it. And she comes upstairs. I'm trying to call Jamie over in Reno and it's the middle of the night, and I'm like, does back labor hurt? Like asking these guys, I never experienced it. Right. So my mom comes upstairs and she's like rubbing my back and she sees me rocking and she goes, have you felt the baby move? And I'm like, I think so. Like, I think she's moving around. Like, I don't feel like anything's wrong. I'm just in so much pain. And she goes, I think you're in labor. And I'm like, what? She's like, do you have your bag packed? And I was like, I've got like some stuff in there. And she's like, okay, what do you have? And I was like, I think I've got like an outfit for the baby. And she's like, you don't have anything packed for yourself? Nope.
Well, it's 3 weeks early, so
yeah. I'm like, nope.
I finished packing my bag the night before.
Yeah,
like the night before I went in labor.
And they say
so
when you start packing your bag,
it's
like,
gonna happen. Right. I heard that.
It's like a nesting thing. Your body knows.
Yep.
Mine did not.
She's like, I'm ready.
So I ended up. My mom just started throwing shit in my bag. But to recommend the things that you should be putting into the bag is definitely comfy clothes for yourself. Baggy sweatpants. I loved my baggy sweatpants, but I also really, really liked having my leggings because those hospital diapers hit different when you feel a little bit more secure.
Right. I understand.
But something from my second pregnancy I learned is buy adult diapers from Walmart. My God. Because they're snugger, they're thicker, you don't have to change them as often.
Is it the orange ones?
Those
pink?
No, they're literally like the adult.
Oh, just depends.
Like depends, like adult depend diapers.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God, it was amazing.
Okay.
It changed my whole like all of it. Okay. And what's even cooler is that like the ice packs and stuff, they fit inside of the Depend really, really well. But yeah, so I did adult diapers, baggy clothes, and I would say honestly, like, forget about all the outfits for your kid. You don't need it.
They're to swaddle like most of the time anyway.
Yeah, just don't worry about it.
They come and take it off.
And I had like all the diapers and stuff packed. They're free at the hospital. I know. Like, you're paying for it anyway. Believe me.
I took some home.
Oh, 100%.
The wipes and diapers, I made sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, like, don't pack any of that. I mean, pack a book. You know what I mean? Because like the next day, like, your husband will be sleeping a lot, and you want him to sleep. So yeah, just like entertainment stuff for you, like. If you want to listen to music while you're giving birth, pack like a sound bar because they'll let you do that. Like, all sorts of just things that are going to personally help you through it. Don't think about the baby as much as you're thinking about you.
Right. That's really good. And so let's bring COVID into this now. So you, what's the timeline like with respect to when shutdowns were happening?
So I gave birth to Via with 10 people in the room.
Okay, so it was prevalent.
Oh, it was prevalent. Like, it was like hospitals might be shutting down soon.
Oh, so that was.
And I was like, holy shit. You know, like, we were all kind of like, oh my God. And then I went into labor in the middle of the night. Jeremy got called. He ends up at the hospital with me. And then, you know, people started showing up because I was just in active labor and nothing was happening. And so I had both of my sister-in-laws, Audrey and Jamie. I had my mom, my mother-in-law, my stepmom, my father-in-law, my dad, my stepdad.
It's a family affair.
Everybody was in the room. And then it was like when it was time to go, it was go time. Yeah. And so like my father-in-law and my dad saw everything. And I was like, because after it happened, I was like, I finally looked around. I was like, oh my God, you guys all just saw me.
There was a whole congregation in here.
You literally all just saw me tear in half. Like, oh my God. You know, and my dad's like, Jesus. Wow. Like, he literally came up to me and he was like, oh my God. And I was like, we're on a new level of close, aren't we?
Oh, that's special.
But I mean, like, but we weren't married. Right. My husband and I
were dating
married
at the time. Yeah,
we hadn't even had sex.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. We waited for marriage, and so this man saw a baby tear through me, saw me breastfeed everything before he ever got to experience.
Yeah, got to be intimate with you. And so, like, because you said they were kind of aware of COVID, did you wear a mask?
So they wanted me to wear a mask into the hospital, but in the room I didn't have to.
Okay, and did anyone wear a mask?
I think
family.
I think my in-laws did, just out of like, in case, respect, you know, and respect and just like being there. But like, my family has always been kind of just like, around each other all the time. So we're kind of like,
yeah,
you know,
and you were in that's the bubble anyway.
That was the bubble.
Like,
yeah. So like I never have like pushed anybody to do it. Like if you feel like you're not sick and you feel like you're comfortable and you know that like you're going to be okay, then like I trust the people who were around me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't a real big thing, but I do remember all of the nurses and stuff like double masked and you know, like they were all,
and that's unusual, right?
It was
because of COVID.
Yeah, it was because of COVID. They all were always masked all the time. I'm pretty sure some of the nurses had like the plastic guard like for the eyes and
oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so with respect, so now you went into labor and you know were taken to the hospital and all that stuff, our local hospital. And so how were there, I guess I know you say you didn't really have expectations, you didn't have a birth plan, but were there any challenges that arose during your labor?
Well, when I got checked in, I was only dilated to a 4 and they said we can't admit you until you're dilated to a 5.
Oh, admit?
Yeah,
really?
like they would not fully, because their OB section was like packed, and so they're like, we can't admit you until you're 5. So like we will literally have to tell you to leave if we can't get you to like.
They didn't have a bed for you.
Yeah, so I was like, holy crap. So the lady, and I think she did it on purpose when she checked me, spread me a little bit so I would get to that 5 so she could get me checked in, which it worked, and it was the most painful experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. It was the sweep that she did.
I think she did without telling me.
Telling you. Oh, that's nice.
She's like, I'm going to check you, and I think she did
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I crawled up the back of that bed.
Felt something.
Oh my God, it was the worst. Like, and that part I hated too, because the trauma that I've been through was like, what?
Felt invaded.
Yeah, and so, and then honestly, like through the whole labor process, it was fine. Nurses were in and out, people were in and out. I was in the worst pain of my life. They were telling me to bounce. I took a hot shower, like nothing was working. And finally I was just getting so weak. Like they gave me an epidural and it only numbed half of my body. Yeah. That was sucked.
Like,
I felt everything on the right side of my body. Yeah, like they were lifting my left leg. Oh yeah,
I thought it was more of like an up down.
No, I literally felt. And what sucks is I tore to the right.
Oh my God.
So, and Bia was big. She was an 8-pound, 5-ounce baby, and she was fat and her head was ginormous, like way bigger than
my
normal.
son was 8'6".
Yeah, so you get it. Yeah, but like it just, I mean, it was a really hard birth, and we had a doctor who was a traveling doctor, and honestly, that part it didn't bug me or bother me at all. I remember my mom standing at the foot of my bed, and he was talking about how he might have to get the suction cup to stick to her head to help pull her out. Okay. Because I was so weak and my pushes weren't like, and so I remember my mom going, Christina Noel, you bear down and you push that baby out. And I did. And that was when she came out.
Wow.
And because I was so scared she was going to have like this little like
cone.
Yeah. You know, I was like, I don't want that. But I remember my mom going, Christina Noel, bear down and you push that baby out right now. And I was like, no.
Wow.
Like movie stuff. Like that's what it felt like.
Like that's what it sounded like. So what was the duration of like when you checked in to when you had your daughter? How long were you in
full labor for like 24 hours, 24 to 26 hours, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And you did get, so like with the epidural, you just kind of powered through it, even though like
I didn't know that that's not how it worked. And let's go ahead and top this off. Yeah. The lady told us to push the button every time I wanted some dose. Right. Well, we were pushing the button. We were just turning the machine on. We weren't ever putting more into my IV. You're supposed to push it to turn it on and push it again to inject. And so we were pushing it.
So by the dosage of it,
we only had just a little bit of it. And by the time it was okay to push, they wouldn't allow me to have any more.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it was like,
because what is it? Like, is it if you're past 7 or so?
It's like 8, I think. They don't want you to have any more. So like with Violet, when I had my epidural with her, I was dilated to almost to an 8. So they're like, it's now or never. And I was throwing up with her. So they're like, you have to have it. And they gave it to me. And that was the most beautiful epidural I've ever had.
Right.
But boy, oh boy, with Via's, it was completely different.
And I think you said a key thing too, because if you don't know what to ask and stuff like that. So
I think it's really important if you are a single person going in and you're fearful that like you might be alone giving birth, to talk to the hospital and say that you want to have a medical advocate there with you.
Oh, so you can do that.
Yeah, you can ask for a medical advocate or a social worker or somebody to be there for you to ask all of the questions that you don't know you should be asking.
Okay. That's really good advice, because that's what I was also going to ask you too. Like, what if you're going in by yourself and stuff? And so before even going into labor and stuff, did you get a chance to take any birthing classes?
Yeah. That was one thing that I did like about the hospital. Jeremiah and I actually went through a whole series of classes together, and that ended with a tour of the hospital, of the OB ward, just in case. And
was this the one in Twin or here?
No, that was the one in here. And then in Twin, I also asked them like, hey, I'm from out of town. Can I just get a tour? And that was probably the most beautiful OB ward I've ever seen. And then like, especially compared to Elko, I was like,
you felt like loving it.
Like you felt like you were just like embraced in peace, you know, walking through St. Luke's, and then you come to Elko Hospital and you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. I never actually got to do my hospital tour and stuff like that, but I know I like called ahead, and because I had mine kind of the latter part of COVID, I never got to do an in-person class. Ours was on Zoom.
Oh, was it really?
I slept through most of it.
Oh my
Carter's
God,
the one who watched it. I was so tired.
Yeah,
so it was on Zoom that we did ours. I slept. I was tired.
It was really cool to have like Jeremiah there though too during the class, because he was actually like, they give a lot of advice to the men in those classes, like on how to be a good support person.
Yeah. And how to like what to say, what not to say and stuff. I remember them saying, never ever say relax. Don't tell them to relax.
Yeah.
Like, that's the worst thing.
You know, I don't remember Jeremiah talking a whole lot. I remember him literally never letting go of me, rubbing my back, and just leaning against, like letting me lean against him. And he just like kind of danced and just like, you know, was there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so describe your first experience of carrying your daughter. What was that like when you held her in your arms?
So she got put in my arms, and the first thing that happened is I remember looking up and seeing Jeremy and having the thought like, oh shit, he just saw everything. and then I remember seeing him grab his finger, and I have a picture of it. I'll show it to you before you leave. Of his finger, and Via like reached up and grabbed it, and she did not let go. And she was purple because I had been pushing for so hard. So like as she was like crying, she was turning pink. She had a lot of fluid in her lungs, so she like immediately got taken away from me. And she actually like almost suffocated and died, which was insane.
So did your water had broken in there already?
They did it.
Okay.
They had broken the water. No, but they were pumping me full of IV fluid because I was so sick and I couldn't breathe and I was dehydrated. And so they're like, we need to get you. You know, and so they think that she absorbed a lot of that. And so when she was born, they were like sucking her out and stuff, you know. And I remember the nurse going, we need to go to, you know, we need to call the pediatrician. Like she's, you know, we're losing. And I'm like, what? You're what? And nobody was talking to me. Like everyone was either talking to my mom or my sister-in-law or somebody else. But I'm like, this is my baby. Talk to me. Tell me what's going on. Like what? And like, I hadn't even pushed out my placenta yet. And so, like my sister-in-law, I remember Jamie, she actually ended up taking over for the nurse. Like she took Via from the nurse and was like, I'll do it, and got all of the fluid out. She just kept sucking more and more out. And then finally Via cried again. And like, cause she was turning purple. And so Jamie, like she powered through it and just got, she got it done, you know? And, finally, like they gave her back to me for like skin to skin. And wow. So it was really terrifying. But when I held her, it was like, it was kind of like one of those feelings like, oh, so this is what I'm supposed to be here for. Purpose. Yeah. It's really true when they say like, you do not know how big your heart is going to grow until the second you hold your baby. And it's like, 100% true.
Wow. And how was Jeremiah during that time of like, I know you talked about grabbing the finger, but like, how was
he was
feeling?
emotional, but he was so proud. Like, you would never have guessed that he wasn't her dad.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and he'll still tell everybody to this day, he goes, I forget that she's not mine.
Yeah.
Like, he goes, it's just not in my head. She's mine.
Yeah. That's
You
beautiful. Know? And so, how long were you in the hospital before you were able to be released?
I think I stayed 3 days just because of losing so much blood.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Okay. But that also had something to do with all the fluids they were pushing through me too. Okay. So like, and I'm just a bleeder. Okay. Yeah. So, but they were constantly pushing on my belly, and and I would just like be gushing, and they're just like, oh, we need you to stay for a little bit longer. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, no, Jeremiah stayed with me that first night in the hospital, which I was really kind of nervous about because I really wanted my mom, but my mom was like, I feel like she knew. Yeah. Like, this needed to happen. You guys need that moment as a family. Yeah. Yeah. And because we had literally been together for 3 months, like known each other and been together for a complete total of 3 months before she was born. Yeah. So what was postpartum recovery like for you? How'd that go? With Olivia, it was a little bit harder because I had to have stitches. So I'll never forget the first time I pooped. Oh God! Oh my God! I know it's so funny to say. It was an hour-long process for me. I had not pooped in like 6 days. Yeah. And so I was like, because I was so scared. And so finally my grandma, she was like, here's some vegetable laxatives. Like, it won't make it super soft, but it'll make you have to go. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right. So did they give you pills? They did. Because I know they did, but these ones were like just more natural, and I wanted to try the more natural thing before I did yeah. And so I started taking them, and I remember it was the first time that everybody left me alone at the house with my baby. Like, mom had errands to do, grandma was doing like shopping or something, Dawn was gone to work, I was alone. Just you and her. And it was like they left, and it hit me. And I was like, oh my God. And then she wanted to nurse, and I was like, do I put her down and let her cry? But I really have to go. So there is a picture I sent to my mom of me nursing her, sitting on the toilet, and I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. And I remember it literally felt like having another baby. I literally felt like I was giving birth again. I was like, this is the most scary feeling of my life. But it was like once you get that first one, you're like, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm fine. It can happen. Yeah. Like your body like trusts itself again after that. But honestly, it wasn't horrible. I don't want to say I rebounded, but it took about eight weeks, and I was done bleeding like fully. Okay. And then I didn't have a period until she was probably 7 months old, because I nursed until she was 6 months, and she weaned herself off. Oh, okay. So nice. That first bowel movement, I remember for me, I had several attempts. Like, I think like day 3 or 4, I was like, all right, today's going to be the day. Let's do this. And I'll go like, no, like, not today. I'm like, it's like a boxer preparing himself for a fight. And like, I think it took me like 3 or 4 days before I'm like, okay. And it was like right before we're about to go to bed, my mother-in-law was staying with us and stuff. And I think they both figured out what was going on, because I was in the bathroom for like 30 to 45 minutes or something. And so it was good because baby was asleep. Grandma was like getting ready for bed. And like my husband, they just all went to bed. They figured they're like, I was doing important work in there. But like, it's crazy because I feel like that's one thing no one prepared me for. No one talks about it. Yeah. So it's just like, I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think I've had a conversation with anyone at all. No, it was the best. Yeah, that was the best feeling. But it was also like the most relieving. Oh my gosh. Like, I was so proud of it. It was so pleasurable. Yeah, I will remember, I will forever remember that feeling. And I was like, I've never been one to talk about my poops. Right? But I will be like, I will straight up be like, you know what? That is the best poop of your life. I know. I remember having to share it too, because it was just like so proud. And because I know, it's so sad.
because I had an emergency C-section.
Yeah.
I never got to push.
Yeah.
But like I was like telling my husband, I'm like, I didn't push, but I feel like this is the closest I've come to pushing a baby.
I promise you
Because
it is.
it was just like, I was like, okay, we pushed for a little bit. Let's take a break. Let's breathe. Okay,
not
keep
good.
going. Okay, let's take a break. Let's go. It's just like, but I was very
100%.
proud of myself of that. And so that's so you said it took about 8 weeks for your body to kind of like adjust and recover and stuff like that. What about mental health wise? What did you have any mental health challenges
I
postpartum?
was on a high.
Okay.
Like I was like, I've got my baby. Well, and then so our 2-week checkup, she got jaundice really, really bad.
Okay.
And again,
and that was like weeks after she was born, not
it was like
even.
2 weeks.
Okay.
So it was like 2 weeks. She went in for her appointment. She was a yellow baby. And the doctor's like, yeah, we definitely need to do a jaundice poke and everything. So we did it. And they told me in the office, yeah, everything looks fine. She's in the correct levels. You guys can go home, like no treatment. Well, I get home and unload her. And the doctor calls me off of his personal cell phone. You know, we messed up. Oh my gosh, you need to get her in. Her levels are so high. It could cause mental brain damage. Like you need to get in here immediately, drop everything, come back. And so I freaked out. I called my mom. Jeremy was out for work, like seeding or doing something for a couple of days. So he had no service. I'm trying to get in touch with him to let him know that like I'm in the hospital. Yeah. So, and I just remember like being in the hospital and I wasn't allowed to like hold her because she was under this light underneath her and above her with like these little goggles on. So it wouldn't hurt her eyes. And like I had to sit there and pump and pump and pump and only bottle feed. And I wasn't allowed to nurse and like all of this stuff. And so like it was really scary. And so it put me through like so much stress, like there for a minute. Yeah. But she was fine and it was not that big of a deal as I thought it was. Right. But after that was like our big hoop, you know? And then after that, it was mainly just the fact that COVID happened by that time and everything was shut down. Our church had shut down. Like there was no more going out to restaurants. People weren't wanting to come over and meet the baby because they were kind of scared to get her sick. Right. And I just remember going like, crap, you know, like, where's my people? And so luckily social media was honestly a really big crutch for me. That's how I stayed in touch with people, Skyping, going live, you know, that type of thing. But all in all, I think because my family is so big, I didn't really get a huge brunt of like the isolation part of it. That's good. But there were multiple times where I'm like, God, I'm just so sick of this. Like, I remember when they put caution tape up around a freaking park in town. And I was like, a park? Seriously? You know, like that's just, it was just so much. And, but I do remember the intentionality of the people. I guess like COVID honestly really showed who was going to be there, who was going to step up and show up in the village. Yeah. So, I got really close with Nicole, you know, cause she had just had her baby and I got to meet him through a window.
I remember seeing those pictures.
Like it was insane. So, yeah, it was really scary to kind of like go through all of it as a new mom, young, dating somebody. And then when she was 4 months old, that's when we got engaged. And he took me on the most treacherous hike of my life, 4 months postpartum. Literally was like, should I still be around for this? You know, like, oh my God. Yeah. And we got to the top and he proposed. And yeah, it was really cool to be able to start preparing and like actually starting to call him daddy and, you know, like, this is your dad. And
how did you, because your husband's a firefighter and he had to go out on assignment. When did he get to go out on assignment?
So
how many months postpartum?
I think it was like right after he proposed to me. So like four 4.5 months.
He proposes and like takes off.
Yeah,
goes
because
on
I was
assignment.
like, well, and I told him, I was like, if we're gonna actually get married and you're like serious about this, like I want a ring before you leave because
good.
I want to have that commitment. I'm not gonna sit around and just wait for somebody.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And he was just like, Jesus, you know. And I was like, this is also what I want in my ring. Mm-hmm. Awesome. And I remember going, and me and Nate were working out at the high school track, and I remember we were like doing one of our walking sections, and I was like, I just don't understand why he hasn't put a freaking ring on it yet. I like literally bared my insides to this man, and he hasn't even proposed to me yet. Like, I was like, does he not like my body? Like, and Nate's like, just shut up. Like, he knew about it, and he's like, just shut up. He's like, let God.
Like your big brother is just like, stop it.
Like, Jesus. He's like, come on, Jeremiah. Like, just do it. Because he knew he was going to.
Yeah.
But he was like, God.
But he can't tell you. And he's just like, my sister needs to chill.
Honestly, like, the engagement really helped me just kind of like full-fledged go into wedding planning mode. Yeah. And so I had something to like get me through it.
That makes sense. As you're talking, it's funny because I feel like your brother has some of these like conversations, because I had a similar conversation. I had a similar conversation with him when Carter and I started dating.
Yeah.
Because like we had gone on like maybe 3 dates or something like that. And
like, why doesn't he love me enough to marry me yet?
Not that. But I was telling him, I was like messaging him and stuff like that on Facebook. I was like, yeah, I don't know. Because like your brother's actually one of the first people whom I contacted when he Carter asked me out on a date, because of course I'm like, he's the lead pastor and stuff, and I was just tired of making poor decisions, so I kind of was like checking in with your brother to like give me wisdom and talk smack out of me and stuff. And so like I remember texting him and saying, the initial one, like sent him a message. I was like, do you know this guy? Like, what's his deal? He asked me out on a date and he spoke good things about him, and then we went on a few dates and stuff. Whenever I went on dates to like update him. And I remember we went on a hike one time. My husband always makes fun of it, but I let your brother know our whereabouts, because my husband was like, you just didn't want this white guy to kill you. I don't know what. And I was like, I needed someone to know my whereabouts. And so your brother, I like update. I was like, he's got to fear the pastor. Like, he's got to fear the pastor. I mean, who else? Because I don't have family here. So I needed someone. I mean, I'll tell my girlfriends, but I felt safer that a man who grew up here knows where I am and stuff. Yeah. And so we went on a few dates, and I remember like messaging him right before maybe our 4th date. I was like, yo, I've been hanging on. This guy's great, but I don't know what his deal is and stuff. Like, is he serious? like
is he talking serious?
Like, what is the deal? And I'm sure your brother knew more, but it's just like, you know what? I just think, you can have an honest conversation. Some men appreciate that honesty and realness and stuff. But I just think it's funny that like these women have these like chick flick moments with Nate.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're like, so is he into me?
I know.
Can you go talk to him for me?
He's like a source for us sometimes. So that's why I was laughing so hard.
It's like he's got to know.
Exactly. You know? So, but that's really funny. But I love that you said like I needed some kind of security and stuff like that, because I remember your brother telling me that, like, all jokes aside, he was like, you know what, there's nothing wrong with you asking him boldly, like, and saying like what are your intentions? Yeah. And I remember him saying that because after our hike out at Lamoille, we went out for lunch and stuff like that, and I straight up took your brother's advice. I was like, what are your intentions? Like, what's up? Like, dude, I'm 29. Like, I don't have time to date for fun. I don't need another guy friend. I really told him that. Right. I was like, I have enough guy friends. I'm an engineer. I work with men all the time. Like, I was like, I don't need another male friend at all. Right.
I need a husband.
Yeah, but I was glad your brother gave me that push, just for him to be a listening ears and stuff like that, and wisdom that he carries and stuff. So I think that was really, really good. And so, like, with the him going out on assignment and stuff, 4 months postpartum, and he's mingling with all these different people. How did you like deal with exposure for him when he came back home to be with you guys?
So
did you have any concerns?
He's got like a really small crew, and like they're out camping. So it's like they're
isolated.
Outside, they're isolated.
Right.
They stay away from each other because it's a bunch of dudes. They're not snuggling, So like when he would come home, like we never waited a day or anything. He was just like, we're fine.
That makes sense.
If he was ever concerned, he's such a caring person. He would have been like, I'm so sorry, but I'm like we're not gonna, be close. But yeah, no, he never was exposed or anything like that, as far as like needing to stay away.
That's comforting. That's really comforting to know. And with respect to your daughter, with with COVID going on and everything, did you ever worry about her development? Like, she's not mingling much with a lot of kids, or she's not out there. Like, did you have any of those concerns at all?
Yes and no. Okay. Mainly, I feel like a big part of things were everybody was masked up, and I know that developmentally, like, kids watch your mouth, and that's how they learn to talk. And so, like, if people were around and they were wanting to wear a mask, I'd be like, okay, well, like, it's okay. Just take it off, you know, like, and to me, it's one of those things where I really that was my first steps into taking a lot of faith, or putting my faith in Jesus, and knowing like he's got my kid, and so I was really just, I mean, if I knew you had been around sick people, I'm not going to let you come over anyway.
I'm not going to be reckless about it.
I mean, and it's the same thing, even, pre-COVID, like if you've been around someone with the flu, don't come hold my kid.
That's common sense, right?
Yeah. So I kind of just tried to fake it till I made it, as far as like living as much normal of a life as possible with my baby.
That's good.
So I would still take her to Walmart. I'd still take her out. I'd still go do things. Like, would I keep my distance? Sure. But like, I also didn't live in fear of it either.
Yeah, that's good.
I was respectful, to other people who did have more fear. But I was never really, I don't think I ever bought like a cutesy mask or anything, I didn't do any of that. I was just like, if they want me to wear a mask, I will. But if it's not mandatory, I'm not going to. Yeah. Like,
so you try to kind of keep a normal, like, regardless of COVID going on, a normal environment for her and everything.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
Awesome.
And I mean, she's so intelligent and she's so smart. I mean, she's.
I always have to remind myself how young she is.
I know,
because she has like conversations of like, how am I talking to this little person?
Yeah, 100%.
So smart.
She's going to be tested to probably jump a preschool class. You know what I mean? Like, because like she's ready for like the older class.
Smart.
So. Yeah, it's just, and I honestly credit that to kind of like COVID, because we spent a lot of time learning together and just like really intentional moments with her. And it's kind of funny because now that we're like post COVID and I have my other baby, my second child, Violet, like there's, I don't want to say a lack of intentionality there, but like, because we can go out and do things, I'm not like so hands-on. I'm like, someone else can do it. I'm tired. Yeah. But so yeah, there's like a really big difference in how like I parented Olivia versus like how I've parented Violet.
I've heard some other parents say that, and even like if we're not even counting the pandemic, like just they're going to be different. Kids, my father-in-law the other day was saying, it's like, with this one kid right here, you're going to have like, what is it? 10,000 pictures. And then that second kid is just going to be 5.
Yeah. You're like, should we take another picture?
It's like, so, but no, that's something I've definitely heard people say. So, just kind of fast forward, you and your husband, you got engaged and you got married and stuff like that. And I know that your daughter is now legally adopted by him and stuff like that. And so talk to us about that process of him legally adopting your daughter.
So it was always in the works. Like before she was born, he was like, when she's born, I want to adopt her, like once we get married. And I was like, okay, cool. So it was always like a goal that I finally gave up on the biological dad being involved. And it was a lot of prayer and a lot of waiting. But after a year of like living under the same roof and him providing for her and everything, and like 5 weeks of them running it in the paper that if he wanted to step up and claim her, he could, we literally just had a courtroom date, and all of our family showed up, and the judge allowed people to stand up and say things why Jeremiah should be able to adopt her and be her dad. And Nate stood up and his dad stood up, and like multiple people stood up and like claimed like Jeremiah being a good man and responsible enough to be her father. And it was like so exciting and so happy. And then I got her birth certificate with her name on it.
Name change.
Her name change. Yeah. And it was an insane, incredibly like beautiful thing.
Yeah. And the biological father never stepped up or try to like fight it, or has he met her?
He has seen her.
Okay.
He's never met her.
Interacted with her at all?
No, he's got 2 older kids as well.
Okay.
That I know of.
Okay.
And his oldest daughter tried to get in contact with me to meet her. And then I got a message from her biological dad saying, don't message my 14-year-old daughter. And this was 2 years ago. Okay. And I was like, I didn't. She messaged me. Right. And I even told her, I said, with parental consent, that's fine. But your dad is not allowed on the premises.
Yeah.
And so that was like the last time I ever.
Yeah. And I know she's so young, but was she aware of that change of the adoption and all? But she's so smart.
I celebrate adoption day with her because she's very aware. We pray every single night. We thank God for adoption, and we thank God that Daddy has a heart like Jesus. To love someone that's, not his. And
so she knows that your husband's not her biological dad?
I don't know if she understands that yet, but she knows what adoption is. She knows that Finney and Lenny, her cousins, are adopted, and she knows that she's adopted. Yeah. And we have talked about how Daddy met Via and Mommy when Via was in Mommy's belly already. Wow. So like I try to incorporate.
That's really good, Chrissy.
All of that.
Really that's really
it's
impressive.
Hard, though, too.
That's
it's
really
extremely
impressive.
Hard because I live with I'm waiting for the day when the questions come, and I'm going to have to be honest with her about my past and who I was that led me up to being with someone who made her but didn't want to claim her. And I don't want her to ever feel rejected. And I'm hoping, because Jeremiah is adopted, that, and around the same age, too, that he can speak into her life and be like, it doesn't really matter who made you. We're all God's, and I wanted you before I ever met you. And so like, I talk to her a lot about that. Like, I'll just incorporate it every once in a while into our conversation. Just, did you know that Daddy just loves you so much? He chose you. That type of thing. Nothing about being made or Daddy helped me make you. Like, your daddy loved you so much that when you were in my belly, he chose to be your daddy.
Yeah, I love that.
Those types of things. And so she loves Jesus so much, and she always thanks Jesus for Daddy's heart for adoption.
Yeah. Is there any advice you'd give someone? Because I have a friend who's in a similar situation whereby her husband wants to legally adopt her son. And like, is there any advice in addition to, because honestly, you've already said so much. Any advice in terms of navigating through this process? And if in case the biological parent is giving a tough time, like making the process difficult?
I never had to deal with any of that. So I honestly feel like if the biological parent in my situation was trying to make things difficult, I would have just complied to whatever he was asking for. Okay. And because the truth is going to come out no matter what. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so it's like, if he was trying to give me trouble in my case, it would have been a paternity test. It would have been all of the things. And I would have been like, okay, like you can pay me back pay, I'll take your money. But I was really grateful that didn't happen, simply because I didn't want to relinquish my kid to him and have her be alone with him, because I honestly, sure, I slept with him, but I don't know him. I don't know how he would be with my baby, And so, honestly, I would just say, make sure that you trust your legal support, and make sure you're fully open and honest with your legal support, because if they don't have all the information, they're not going to be able to help you.
Yeah. And
they knew everything for me.
Yeah. Wow.
They knew about the drugs. They knew about everything.
Wow. That's powerful. What advice would you give in terms of finances and stuff like that? Because here you are doing it as a single mom and all that stuff. What advice would you give, like financial advice and preparation for a baby?
Oof. So I was a nanny throughout my entire pregnancy. I was making $300 a week. Okay. I worked for a good friend of mine. Him and I are still friends. I clean his house to this day. twice a month. But financially, I would just say pay your bills and then split whatever you have left over. Put that in savings and always buy yourself something, like something nice. Like it's okay to reward yourself for working hard. Financially, like I would also talk about like don't go into debt, don't open up credit cards, don't be dumb, like there are so many different avenues and so many programs locally that can help single moms, especially like through Medicaid or insurance companies. Like if you call them and say like I need these types of programs or this type of help, a lot of them can give you like avenues and phone numbers and like places to call to help you. Like we have a family resource center here in town, and that resource center will provide formula, diapers, classes, daycare, all sorts of stuff. Like you just have to ask. There's grants that will pay like 50% of like daycares and stuff, but you just have to go and ask.
Yeah. That's
so
good. That's
just
really
honestly
good.
Just know your local resources, and if you don't know how to find them, pretty much every city's got like a family resource center.
Right.
And so you can go to there, and that will be, they've got social workers working for them. They've got people who will will sit down for free and literally help you fill out legal documents for adoptions. Like they've got all of the help there.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really, really good. And so you work from home because you've got multiple businesses and stuff like that. How do you balance, like how's your work-life balance with
I wake up very early.
Girls? Yeah.
I go to bed early and I wake up early.
Yeah. How early do you go to bed?
So me and Jeremiah are asleep by probably 8:45, 9 o'clock every night. Wow. Yeah. So we put the girls down at 7:30. We go through the house, we pick up, we clean up, we kind of do like a brief, reset, and then we come to bed. We read for 15 to 20 minutes or books. We're a bunch of old couples. Like that's what we are. We're just old.
I love it.
And then we literally like 8:45 we're like asleep.
Nice.
We're just in bed. And then I wake up, my alarm goes off at 4:30. At 5 I wake up, I have a cup of coffee. I have a cottage bakery, so I'll do whatever baked stuff I need to before the kids wake up at about 7. When they wake up, my time is with them. And then during that time is usually when I run like my makeup business and like post anything about that, or, or I'll even do more baking, that type of thing. So,
wow. That's really, really good advice. And so with having a husband who's gone a good chunk of like the latter part of the year, how do you maintain a healthy marriage and having 2 young ones?
Oof. That is going to be new this year.
Yeah.
So, because I was only pregnant last year with Violet during fire season. So now I don't know what it's going to be like being a single parent, kind of. I definitely get the taste of what single parenthood is like. Luckily, my husband, he definitely is the financial provider for the house. So, and he's very trusting with that. So he'll tell me, like we do the Dave Ramsey. So he's like, yeah, I need you to go and get this. And these are the bills that have been paid or that I might not be able to pay because I'll be out of service. So I need you to do these. Our communication stays open. We definitely make sure we ask intentional questions to each other when we can talk. So kind of like, he'll be like, hey, where are you? Like, where are you at right now? Like, how are you doing? And I'll ask him kind of like, where's your stress levels? What are your anxieties? What are you battling right now? What's, where are you feeling like you're struggling, and we'll talk about our wins, because when he's gone, sometimes we only get to talk once a week. So it's like, we ask the intentional questions, and he'll ask, how are the girls? What are your struggles with them? How can I help? Do you want me to talk to Olivia? Do you, that type of thing. And then when he's home, it's very much so we've talked before the season starts, we talk about what his days off are going to look like. Cause typically he gets two days off. The first day is always R&R as far as like, okay, he gets to go outside and do all the things around the house. And the second day is our day, family day, very intentional.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. I like that structure and customizing it for what works for your family and stuff like that. And
well, it fits all of our needs. Like 2 days is a very short amount of time to be able to fit 3 women's needs into one man's life. So it's like, I need to give him his day soothe his mind knowing that he's still taking care of the house and stuff like that, because he takes a lot of pride in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second day he can take pride in his family and resting and being, or just being in the same room as us.
Yeah. And so just a few final questions. Mm-hmm. Looking back now at your life and all that stuff, and God has blessed you with 2 amazing daughters, what lessons are you intentional about teaching them, being that you're raising 2 girls?
Oh my gosh.
I know they're so young.
No, that question gave me chills.
I know they're young, but I know you're a very intentional person. I know
I'm very intentional in telling the kids that, especially Olivia right now, that her worth does not lie in how she pleases somebody. Mm-hmm. So, or like, I don't want her to do things and be like, are you proud of me? Like, I always ask her the questions like, are you proud of yourself? Oh. Like, are you so happy you did that? Did that make you happy? Mm. You know, like, because she loves to like clean or like be helpful. And so it's like when she does those things, I'm like, are you proud of yourself? You did such a good job. And she's like, yeah, I am proud of myself. I'm like, that's good. Me too. That. And then I'll like, mine is secondary.
Oh, I love that.
And then I always just tell them how much Jesus loves them. And I always say, did you know mommy loves you? And they'll go, yeah. Like, do you know daddy loves you? Yeah. I'm like, do you know Mimi loves you? And they're like, yeah. Like, did you know that Jesus loves you even more than all of us combined? And they're like, that's what? Good. And they're like, yeah. And then Via, like, also another thing is like, no matter what's going on in her life, we've just been instilling that she can stop and pray whenever.
I love
so that. Like yesterday, my friend Kelly came over for lunch, and she has like this little scab on the back of her ankle from a pair of shoes that she was wearing the other day. Via does. And Kelly was like, yeah, you know, sometimes Jesus just takes a little bit of time to heal your body. And so you just have to wait a couple more days. And Via goes, oh, Jesus. she does her head too. She goes, oh, Jesus. And she looks up at the sky and she goes, will you please just heal my ankle? Thank you, Jesus. I love you. Oh. And you're just sitting there and I'm just like, oh, you know, like I wish my prayer life was like that. Mm-hmm. And so very much so I'm just trying to teach her that like a relationship with Jesus is just as authentic as this relationship, you know, and it's very special, and it's one that you have to put effort into. And stupid little things like how was the thunderstorm the other day? And she goes, Mom, should I be scared of that? And I'm like, no, baby, that's Jesus going, I love you, Via. No. And so she looks up and she goes, Jesus, I love you too. Like every single time that it thundered, you know? Awesome. And I was just like, oh, you know, like the awe and the wonder for the little things.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Just as much as I try to instill her things, being a mom and teaching these girls their self-worth and where that lies with Jesus has taught me a lot about where mine lies, like with my self-image. And you saw my post about just wear the damn shorts, you know, and I've got cellulite on my legs and stretch marks, and that's okay. And it's what made me do that is I put these shorts on this morning, and Violet, she comes up and she's obsessed with like petting your like skin. So like if you're showing like skin on your legs, she'll come up and just be like, you know, and you're just like,
I love her.
Like, what are you doing? And she'll look at you and go, wow.
Oh.
And so she did that to me, and she looks up at me and she smiles so big and she goes, wow. And then Via, like, she kind of like ran in, you know, because she just busts through window, like through doors, like, hey, you know, and she comes in, she goes, wow, Mom, your butt is beautiful. And I was like, baby.
Bawling.
You know, I was like,
oh, sweet.
But it's like that from the eyes of the child, you know what I mean? They don't see me hating myself. And I don't want them to look in the mirror and hate themselves because somebody else said that they're not perfect. And so I'm like, Jesus made me exactly who I am right now in this moment for a reason. And yes, there are things that I can change. Yes, there are things that need to be changed, but I'm doing the steps to get there. And I want them to see the work and the healthiness of like working through things, and that you can change, but in a healthy way.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you're someone who like, you're very disciplined with like your health and fitness and stuff like that. Like what advice?
Trying to be.
Yeah, but like, that's the thing.
That's new.
I know, but that's such a blessing sharing your story and how far you've come, like having a healthy relationship with food now and your body and stuff. Like, what advice would you give women in terms of managing their mental and physical health?
Honestly,
with a busy schedule of mom life, you know?
Always know that taking time for yourself, because you will feel guilty. That's just non-negotiable. That just like comes with motherhood.
Right.
Is this over sense of just guilt. But it is okay. One, I will say this, as a newborn baby, it is okay to let them cry. It ain't gonna hurt them. You can walk away.
Yeah.
Second, as they get older and they're able to kind of process a little bit, it's okay to explain to them that you need a minute. And I think it's healthy to explain to them, mommy needs a minute of alone time so I can be a better mommy for you. And I've told Via that. Mommy needs a minute to take a deep breath. I'm very frustrated right now. Please go sit down on the couch and I will come be with you in just 1 minute. And I'll set a timer for like 2 minutes. And I'll be like, mommy's going to come back and I'm going to be better. Yeah. But I need to take a breather. And so she understands, she's even told me, like, she's gotten really frustrated and she mimics those. She's learned those. Like, mommy, I really just need a minute. I'm very frustrated. Can you please go away? I'm like, yes, ma'am. Sure can. So definitely take those times for yourself. Take that time. Go get a mani-pedi. Go for a walk. Do the thing that you need to do, because you're not going to be a good mom. You're not going to be in a good mental state if you're constantly stressed, constantly frustrated, constantly like feeling guilty, constantly like you need to take care of your mental health. Like, your kid is an extension of you. Right. They don't need to be the main focus of you. You are still you. You are still capable of being yourself, doing the things you love. You know, like, your kid will fall in line. Your whole schedule does not need to revolve around them. Yeah. Their whole schedule will now revolve around you. I remember you
giving me that advice. Yeah, I remember you saying that to me.
My kids will fall asleep anywhere. You know what I mean? And it's because it's like, hey, figure it out. Yeah. You're tired, go to sleep. Yeah, I remember you know, like a lot of people don't parent that way these days. And it's one of those things where I'm not going to slow down my life. My kids can learn to keep up, and they're very resilient little human beings. They may catch you off guard with those big old cute eyes and the chunky cheeks, but I promise you they fall in line.
Yeah. You're such an awesome mom, because your daughters, I mean, because I've had to, like, you know, in the kids' rooms and stuff, I've been with them, and it's like, there's, you know, your older one, she's just, I'm having conversations with her after by myself. She was just born yesterday. It's just like, we'll be talking, and she's one whom I like never have to worry about what she needs and stuff. Because she will let me know, and it's a good thing, because sometimes I'm just like, I don't know what the baby needs. I don't, and she's like, I would like to have juice now. I would like to. Yeah. I would like. And like, polite. Oh, I'm ready to use the bathroom now, and she is. We use our magic words all the time, the please and the thank you and stuff. And your youngest, the most joyful baby ever. My husband and I were talking about that the other day, about her joy. But she's from such a young age.
Yeah, she's been
so joyful and Miss Independent. Because I remember, like, when you first dropped her off in the baby room, you're like, she doesn't like being fed. Just prop her and she'll feed herself. I was like, she hates being touched. I know, actually. She does not like that. She's just like Miss Independent, Miss Joyful, and it's just like, that's a true testament of what you and Jeremiah are doing. You know, of course, the grace of God and all that, but
100% the grace of God.
But honestly, like, I give you both credit. Thank like, you know, and just the village that surrounds you, because your daughters are just amazing. Like, they really are. Because, like, you know, my son's such a happy, joyful boy, and I think my husband the other day was like, you and Violet will be like best friends.
I can't wait. Oh my gosh.
And they love each other in the baby room, like, you know, but it's like, it's so cool just to see, like, just the beautiful thing that's come out of such a place of pain and hurt, and you know,
have you heard that saying where it's you don't ever see God's footsteps until like years down the line,
and like you look back,
you look back. And I used to talk to Pastor Seth Wildshoe, and I only talked to him like 2 or 3 times on the phone for like soul care. Yeah. And one of the things he said to me is, one thing to heal from your trauma and heal from the brokenness that you're still dealing with is to take a look back and see Jesus walking with you. And that's sitting there and picking out certain traumas that happened and imagining Jesus sitting next to you through those traumas, and see how you view yourself differently in those moments. Wow. And I was just like, because I take a look back and I'm like, the abuse that I endured, I see Jesus literally holding on to me, trying to pull me away, whether it be through friends, text messages,
he's
people
been there
he's been there the entire time. And people are always like, girl, you're so strong. You fought addiction. Girl, you got out of, sexual abuse. Girl, you've done it. And I'm like, no, don't give me credit. I don't want the credit. It was literally God saying, I'm not done. Yeah. I've got you.
Man, I love that. Just a couple last questions. Mm-hmm. What's the hardest part about being a mom?
Ooh. It's kind of funny, but it's like you wait your entire life to not have to ask your parents to go do stuff. And then you have kids and you have to ask your parents to go do stuff. In all honesty, kind of just getting, as they get older, definitely getting that kind of the alone time with my husband. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my kids are in a very interrupting phase. They know how to open doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had to put locks on the doors.
Boundaries, what's that?
And then of course, you put the locks on the doors and you hear constantly and you're just like, this is done. We're done. there ain't no
we'll try tomorrow.
Yeah. This is and it's when you think you finally get to do it, it's in the middle of the night, the monitor lights up and they're like, and I'm like, so honestly, I think it's just finding the being sexual again. You know what I mean? That's been one of my hardest things, is just finding. One thing my husband's always loved about me is my self-confidence, and I lost that for a little bit when I gained a lot of weight. And he was like, where are you? And I think because one of the things I like to say is if you're constantly down on yourself and you're constantly telling somebody else, I'm so fat. I look at this dimple, or look at how ugly I look, or man, look at this pooch. I hate this. They're going to open their eyes at some point and see it. Yeah. You have yourself convinced, you don't need to convince other people. You know what I mean? And so it's my husband, for a while there, he was just we had to go through marriage counseling because he was starting to see my flaws, because that's all I talked about. And I would point out oh, you don't want to touch this, I would convince him to not, to not touch me. He's like, oh, okay. And it wasn't necessarily he didn't feel allowed to touch it. He also was like, you're right. And so, it's broken down to a lot of the, okay, so where's your worth? Is it in your body or is it in Jesus? And when it's in Jesus, your body kind of falls in line and it wants to be healthy. And so having that spiritual walk with God, it's so crazy how your spiritual walk with God will make you feel sexy as hell.
Yeah.
It will.
I understand.
Yeah, 100% will.
Yeah. I understand.
So, I've noticed that pouring into God and pouring into my self-worth through Jesus has made me so much more self-confident. And I have been able to rock booty shorts. Haven't been hiding my arms, and you know what I mean? It's been wonderful. I've been going to the gym. I've been eating healthy. I've been, awesome. My husband and I, we've actually been having sex again. Yeah. And it's just it's one of those things where we're just okay, God is so good in every single area, as long as God is in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, even that advice is for me, because being a mom, 9 months postpartum, I was telling you earlier and stuff like that. I have good days and I have bad days, or I'm struggling with the changes of my body. I'm someone who used to do pageants in the past. And so having to deal with the extra meat, and, now I've got stretch marks and the discoloration of my stomach and all these different things. I'm still we're talking about the pooch earlier, too, all those things, just, that's
my
tough,
thing is learning how to wear it as a badge of honor. Yeah. You have a cute baggy shirt that you want to tuck into your jeans, but you're oh, but it shows my pooch. Freaking tuck it in deeper. Push that pooch out, because it's you grew up.
A human. I know.
It's a whole ass, an 8-pound human before it came out of you.
We grew 8 pounds. 6 ounces. 5 ounces.
Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
know?
Yeah, it's a miracle and it's such a blessing. And I think that's so good because that's something I constantly have to remind myself too. And my husband, like we have these conversations and stuff like that. Like he's like, you look at the evidence of why this is going on. So I think it's such a blessing too to have a partner who encourages you and loves you through it all and stuff.
And friends too. Like, and I want to encourage you if you're feeling down on yourself, like one of my biggest things is fake it till you make it. Put on a belly shirt and go. You know what I mean? Like you fake that confidence and then suddenly you're just like, oh, shit. That's one of my things is like when I'm feeling like the least confident, I will go and do something and I will push myself out of my comfort zone because then you realize like not everybody's actually looking at you. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really matter. Your husband thinks you're hot. So like be hot. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Live confident.
Live confidently.
I love that. Final question. What's the best part about being a mom?
The best part of being a mom.
Parts.
I think it is seeing every single, on your worst days. Like I've had some bad days with my girls where it has been hard. And they just give you a big hug, you know? Like, it really is. Like, it's so cliche and corny, but it's like they give you that big hug at the end of your hard day where they literally, like, abused you all day long. And you're questioning your identity and your worth as a human being. And then they're like, love you, you know? Or, like, Violet, she won't say I love you. She goes, oh. Like, that's how she says I love you. Sweetest. Oh. And it's just, it's those little tiny moments where you see the best of you in them. Yeah. Like I was just telling my mom today, actually, I was like, you know what? Gosh, Olivia is just so cool. It's really cool to see things that I enjoy coming out in my daughter. You know, like we've got stuff in common because she's her own whole little person. And that's another thing too, is like, I don't want to try to train them to be me. I want to just train them to be the best
their authentic selves. Yeah.
And so like that's the best part of being a mom is figuring out every single day that new person in front of you. Cause they change every day. Yeah. When they hit toddler, they're a new person every day. You might as well just be like, good morning. Yeah. I'm mom.
Who are you today? That's awesome.
It's beautiful. Aww. It's the best part for sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chrissy, for sharing your story with me and all of us.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you. And you're such an amazing mom, an amazing wife, a great friend. And a powerful woman of God. And I'm thankful for you. I'm glad that I get to have this season of early motherhood and wifehood and all that stuff with someone like you by my side. Because
that's how I feel about you. She's the one married to a pastor, by the way.
Oh my gosh. But it's like, it's such a blessing that, because like for me at my age, at 32, I feel like a lot of my friends already have kids much older. So it's nice to have women like you who are kind of like in those earlier years and stuff, women like you and Nicole and stuff like that, who like, we get to walk through this together and stuff. Like you ladies have much older, kids are a little older and stuff. So it's like, okay, like what happened when you,
but it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. It's still fresh, you know, fresh. In your mind. So it's such a blessing to have ladies like you in my life, and we get to do life together in many different ways. So thank you so much. And thank you for hanging in there with us. I know it was a long one, but such a good conversation. Thank you so much for those who tuned in, for those watching the replay, and I'll see you in the next video.
Bye.